to another video, another Flip Learning video. Today we start the new unit in the preliminary course, and we're starting the body in motion. So according to the students learn about, when we look at our syllabus, we will look at the major bones involved in movement. We'll be looking also at the structure and function of synovial joints and also the joint actions. If we look at the students learn too, by the end of those three dot points, you should be able to identify the location and type of major bones involved in movement. Okay, our learning intention, by the end of this video, hopefully you'll be able to identify the location and type of major muscles involved in the movement. For example, long bones, articulated hinge joints for flexion and extension. Our success criteria, that you'll be able to identify and explain the major bones involved in movement of the skeletal system. The structure and function of the synovial joints, you'll be able to identify the joint actions, for example, extension and flexion, and you'll be able to show links of all the above. Our first dot point is the major bones involved in movement. There are 206 bones in the body. They are grouped together. There's an axial skeleton and an appendicular skeleton. There are about 80 bones in the axial and 126 bones in the appendicular. The functions of the skeletal system, one of them is to support the framework. It helps to attach the connective tissue, such as muscles. It's also for protection, so it protects our internal organs, like our heart and our lungs. Movement, so when muscles contract, they pull and pull on the bones. It helps mineral storage as well, especially calcium and phosphate. One of the functions is for blood cell production, and another one is for storage of energy. So let's have a look at some of these bones that make up the skeletal system. So here's my little daughter. I brought her in as a special guest, and she's wearing her little onesie, which is, well, it's sort of like a skeletal onesie, isn't it? Okay, so I'm just going to go use her as my guide for the skeletal system. So we have our ribs here. These are our ribs. Over here is our sternum. We have our carpals. So we've got our carpals, which is we have our metacarpals, which is pretty much the palm of our hand. We have our metacarpals, which is the next bone up, and we have our phalanges. Now there are the phalanges as well. Our other phalanges is in our feet, which is pretty much, if you imagine this being our foot would have phalanges, but they'll have metatarsals and tarsals. So if that was our feet, it would be metatarsals and metatarsals, and phalanges here. But this is our hand, so it's metacarpals, carpals, and phalanges. We have this bone here. So the bone that's closer to the thumb is our radius. Our other bone is our ulna. So we have two bones there. This one here is our humerus. So when we get hit over here on the elbow, we say we got hit on our funny bone. Well, it's not really that funny when we get hit, eh? However, it's connected to our humerus, so everything's a bit of a joke at the moment. So up here, we have our scapula, and, sorry, our scapula is here, silly me, that's your clavicle, okay? And our jawbone, which, you know, Alyssa likes to use quite a bit, is a mandible. And that's our frontal bone up here. Also our skull. What else have we got? We've got at the back, we have our vertebrae. So we have our cervical vertebrae, we have our thoracic, and we have our lumbar vertebrae here. Our legs, we have, and I don't know if you can see in the camera, but the top part of our leg, okay, is our femur, and then we have the bottom two is a tibia and fibula, and that's pretty much the majority of the bones that we need to look at just for now. Melissa is standing in what's called the anatomical position. So our palms are facing out forward, our feet are flat, and we're facing forward. So this here is our interior view. If we want to see the posterior view, we turn back, and that's posterior. So if we talk about whether, if the sternum, which is here, is it posterior or anterior to the vertebrae, we can see that the sternum here is in the front and our vertebrae is at the back, so it is anterior to the sternum. If I was to ask you if her heart is posterior or anterior to, again, the spine, being in the front of the spine, you would say it would be anterior. If I was to say what's her thoracic spine to her, let me think. Again, I'm just thinking sternum. Your thoracic spine is posterior to the sternum. Then we look at superior and inferior. Superior is anything above, inferior is anything bottom. So in that case, her nose will be superior to her pelvis, and her sternum will be inferior to, say, her skull. We also have the sagittal plane. The sagittal plane runs down to the midline of the body and it divides left to right. We also know that this is medial and this is lateral. So if I was to say where her arm is to her sternum, her right arm is lateral to her sternum, where her sternum is medial to her lateral. And that's the same with our ankles. You know, if we tear our medial ligament, it will be the ankle towards the midline of the body. If we tore our lateral ligament, unfortunately, it would be the outer ligament, which is the lateral side. And we have proximal and distal. So proximal will be anything in proximity with the anterior. So we see her nose is proximal to her mouth. However, her nose will be distal to her feet. There are four main types of bones. There's the long bones, the short bones, the flat bones, and irregular bones. Long bones are longer and wider and tend to work as in the hinge arrangement with other bones. Some examples of long bones are arms, legs, such as the humerus, the radius, the ulna, the femur. Short bones tend to be box-shaped type of bones, and they can be found in areas such as your wrists, your ankles. Flat bones have a broad surface, and they're usually for protection. So your ribs are flat bones, and they have a protective cover on them to ensure that they stay regulated. Irregular bones make up bones that do not fit in all those three areas, and a good example of an irregular bone is one of the bones in your spine. Your skeleton is made up of the axial skeleton and the appendicular skeleton. The axial includes your head, your ribs, your spine. So it's pretty much everything that's, you could say, connects as the trunk of the body, where your appendicular would be your arms and your legs. Yeah, mama. Okay, so now we'll look at the second dot point. And the second dot point is the structure and function of synovial joints. There is structural classification of joints. One is fibrous, one is cartilaginous, and the other one is synovial. The fibrous joints are held together by strong connective tissue, and there's no joint cavity. So pretty much your skull, where your skull's got all these different bones, you could say, and they're fused together, and there's no joint cavity there. Cartilaginous joints have no cavity, and the bones are held together by cartilage. So pretty much like your spine, where you've got your bones connected together, there's a bit of cartilage in between, and it basically causes that movement. Synovial joints are connected together by tendons and ligaments. Your knee joint is a very good one, where you've got your humerus and your tibia connected together, and they're connected together through ligaments. For example, your anterior cruciate, your posterior cruciate ligament, and your medial and your lateral. Synovial joints are also freely movable. So as we can see, fibrous are immovable, cartilaginous are slightly immovable, and our synovial joints are freely immovable. As I mentioned before, synovial joints, the structure and stability of a synovial joint is connected by tendons and ligaments. Tendons attach muscle to bone, ligaments connective tissue that attaches bone to bone. There are different types of joints. We have a hinge joint, we have saddle joints, there is ball and socket joints, pivot joints, and gliding joints.
Step up.
Our next dot point is looking at joint actions. So let's go through these joint actions. First one, flexion. Flexion decreases the angle of the joint. So for example, if I was to decrease the angle of my elbow joint, you see that I'll be flexing, so therefore my biceps are flexing here. So that's flexion. If I was to increase the angle, which I'm doing here, you'll see that I've increased the angle of this joint, and so therefore that's extension. So flexion, extension. We have dorsiflexion and plantarflexion. So dorsiflexion is when your foot is up, as says in this as we can see in this picture. Plantarflexion is when we're pointing the foot down. So in other words, think of it this way: when you plant your foot on the accelerator of your car, that's pretty much like plantarflexion. Abduction, when we move our limbs away from the frontal plane, that's abducting. So think of taking away. When we abduct someone, we take them away. Moving our arm outwards, we're abducting that. In essence, adduction is moving the limb towards the midline of the body. Supination, when we move the radius around with the palm facing up, and pronation is obviously the opposite, so the palm facing down. Supination, pronation. Inversion, the sole of the foot turns medially. Eversion, it turns laterally.